Hello and welcome back to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, and today is Wednesday, August 27th, and we're pleased to be joined here in the studio by three local real estate professionals who are going to continue a conversation we've been having over the past, 3 or 4 years about the real estate market here in Bennington County. Obviously a very big part of our local economy, and as we all know, over the past 5 years, we've seen real estate prices escalate to very higher than normal levels. We've seen changes and modifications, which I guess probably you could look at any 5-year period in history and say, well, yeah, prices went this way and that way. So, but anyway, here to kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on locally at the moment in the real estate area, we're really pleased to have Jennifer Hoffman, who is the principal broker and owner of Hoffman Real Estate. It's based in North Bennington. Steve Settler is the realtor for Four Seasons Sotheby's International Realty up in Ludlow. And Allison Cummings is the principal owner broker of Cummings and Company in Windham. So thank you all for making the time for this conversation today. I really appreciate you coming down and bringing us up to date. So I guess I thought we could start maybe by just going around the table and having each one of you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your respective areas. And Jennifer, why don't we start with you? Are prices stabilizing these days? Are they softening? Are they still going up at a sharp rate, or what's going on?
Thanks for having us, Andy. So I cover the Southshire towns, everything really from Pownell up through Arlington, Sunderland, Sandgate. It's kind of the edge of my territory where I feel really comfortable, and I know that area. We have actually a generous amount of inventory right now compared to where we've been over the last few years. I searched the stats last night, and we've got 52 homes for sale on the market, and that's everything from $80,000 to $2 million. So there's quite the range. The average was somewhere around the $400,000 mark, and the median was right around there as well. So there's definitely choices to be had. But what was most interesting to me was that I was seeing a lot of price reductions. So from the time that these listings have come on the market until now, whether that's been several days or several months, on average, about every other house has had a price reduction. So for those that have not sold yet, we're seeing some softening of the prices that people are asking for their houses. The ones that have sold quickly, we're priced right from the start, usually a little under market value to attract people to want to come in right away. But those properties that are overpriced to begin with, they're just going to sit there. So there's still some great opportunities for buyers right now.
And Steve, is that what you're seeing up in your neck of the woods?
Very much so. I'm largely in what we call the mountain towns, live in Weston and radiate out about an hour in every direction. We also have found that the value is holding, but that aspirational pricing is generally not working anymore. So we try to get our sellers now to look at what's happening on the market and realize that if they're going to over-ask, they're likely just going to sit. Buyers are so well educated now. The internet is so important, and there are so many different ways to get into it and go deeply into a property. There's no more drive-bys and stop by the offices and all that. They've done their work, and they know what they want to see, and they know what they're comparing it to. So you run the danger of literally just having it sit there until you adjust your price if you get too aspirational. We're finding in my market that anything over about $1.2 million is going to take a long time. The lower 1 millions or just up to 1 millions take a bit more time than everything else, but are still going. Once you get much above $1.2 million, you got to really have something to grab them. Our median is above the national average, which is somewhere in the 400s now, and depending on the town, we're 500 to 700 on a median price. Days on market sold are something like 40. But days on market overall are something like 150. So the ones that aren't going really aren't going, and we can't work miracles. I find now that there are very few multiple offers, that with each property, what I'm hoping for, looking for, and nurturing is that one perfect buyer who loves it, who was looking for something just like this, who probably has some connection to that community or neighborhood or type of house, or not just the casual walking in and maybe I want this now. So that has been the trend. We're all still very busy. I think I spend more time hand-holding than I used to. And so much of our business is about communication, constant communication, both with buyers and with sellers, to let them know where things stand, to keep them calm, keep them happy, and bring them all in together.
And Allie, is that basically what you're seeing as well?
I can echo a lot of what Jennifer and Steve both said. I also am seeing, so I'm a little bit further east than these guys are. So I sell a lot in on the eastern side of the state, in Chester and Ludlow and Windham County, all of Windham County, some of Windsor County as well. I think our median price in the Windham area is a little less. It's a little bit, I don't want to say it's remote, but it's a little further away from some of the hubs, like the ski area centers and whatever. So the deals are a little better over there. But I think the one thing that I'm seeing a lot is that people who are putting their house on the market that need houses that need repair are sitting, because a lot of the people that are purchasing are from out of state right now and don't have the wherewithal to supervise any kind of a renovation or a remodel, and it's difficult to get people right now because our trades are so busy with other things. It's
And expensive.
And expensive, sure. It's difficult to get people to commit quickly to a project. And so the houses that have work that's needed, when somebody walks in and says, oh, I need to redo a kitchen or a bathroom, or it needs a garage, or those houses are sitting longer. And even though I think some of them are priced incredibly fairly, they tend to sit. And then, they're very, like to Steve's point about getting the right buyer in there always is one buyer that's perfect for each house. But finding that buyer sometimes takes a long time. And then the sellers get frustrated and the prices end up having to drop. And so it's a little bit frustrating for people, I think, in the selling side of things. But the buyers are certainly, they're kind of going far afield, I think. If they say, I want to be in Vermont, a lot of times buyers aren't sure where in Vermont they want to be, which I think is an interesting trend. I've worked with people who don't really know the communities, and so I try to spend time taking them into different communities and helping them discover, this is what this town has to offer, or this is how close this is to, theater or hiking or lake activity or skiing. So I think educating our buyers on where they might want to land in Vermont is an important element of what our job is. I find I do that a lot. You guys probably do too.
I want to pick up on something that you both have talked about too, which is the just that one special buyer, right? That buyer who's like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And for me, solving that puzzle is like my favorite part of this job.
Absolutely.
I never thought of myself as being a big puzzle person, but it is about connecting people and properties. And when you feel that right match is like blossoming, it's really exciting to sort of bring somebody together to the right house. And I had someone recently under contract on something else, and it needed more work than she felt she could handle, even though they weren't like big things, like these were solvable problems. Yeah. It just, in the cumulative, just felt like too much for her. And so she terminated that transaction, got her deposit back. We're seeing a lot more canceled contracts, I think across the board. That's more common now. And we tried to get another house, and there were multiple offers on that one, so we did not win. And then she asked me, what about this one? And what about that one? And I said, it's under contract. It's under contract. That's not the town you want to be in. And I said, what would actually be perfect for you? It was actually my mom's own house, and it wasn't even on the market yet. We were waiting to move her into her new house before we were going to start marketing it. So I called up my mom and I said, is there any way that, in 4 hours you could be ready for a showing, and this buyer's going to be here? And she jumped up to it, and I'm so glad that she did, because the buyer walked in with me and said, this is exactly what I want.
Oh,
and
that's
so
perfect.
you're seeing more of those kind of off-market deals happening where somebody knows that something's coming, and you just solve that puzzle before everybody knows that those puzzle pieces are even available. And the one hand, that feels unfair to the buyer, who somebody else would have said, oh, that would have been perfect for me too. But this person was my client, and I said, this is exactly what she wants. I know that really well. And so I referred her to somebody else in my office, and we put the deal together, and we never even had to go through a photo shoot. So those things are happening too, a bit more of those off-market sort of pocket listings. And it's a great opportunity for a buyer to get in without a ton of competition.
To Steve's point about people being educated and checking online and Zillow and all of these great platforms that are out there, I caution people sometimes to not take what they find on the internet as gospel, because it's not always exact. And some of the trends that you're seeing on Zillow and some of the reports and the numbers, and even sometimes you see something online that says it's available and it's not.
Right.
So having a realtor that you can really trust and who's really willing to be transparent with you is critical, I feel. My company, I have a tagline in my company that we build relationships, and actually it's forging relationships throughout Vermont is my tagline. And we really feel strongly about the fact that we are in a relationship with our buyers so that they can trust us. We're not sugarcoating things, we're not glazing over the top. And I feel that way about most of the people I work with in this industry, and we're very tightly knit. Our boards throughout this part of Vermont are very tightly knit, and we worked really, really well together. But I just impress upon people not to trust 100% of what they see on the internet, because it's not always, not always
100%
real.
accurate, huh?
Not always
Shocking.
real.
As opposed to everything else on the internet.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I was wondering, so it sounds like a lot of the demand for properties here in Vermont is still being driven by out-of-staters who want to move to Vermont.
Yes.
Is that the case,
Bit.
or is
Yes.
it folks who are already here who are shifting around, upsizing or downsizing, depending?
I think you get a little bit of both. We are getting some people who came for COVID who are either changing what their desire, what they thought their desire was. They want something smaller, or they want more land, or they don't want to be in a town, or they want to be in a town. So we're getting some of that shifting around. We're also getting some of those people leaving. But I think a lot of our business is based on the fact that our median base price is too high for a lot of locals, sadly. So we're not selling a lot to the locals. And the things that the locals can afford need work, in my experience, over where I work.
I completely agree. I have a first-time homebuyer couple that is local, under contract right now, and I'm really excited and hopeful that it all works out. But it's really hard. Those in my area, that sort of first-time homebuyer price point is going to be between $200,000 and $300,000, and there's the most amount of competition for those properties. That has the biggest buyer pool, and so it is very challenging. Sometimes you get lucky and there's a house that doesn't have great marketing, and so people are scrolling online and they're not clicking to request a showing because it's not really impressive online. The pictures don't really tell the story, and then when you walk in person, you can be pleasantly surprised. So don't always judge a book by its cover.
Another thing that we're seeing is a lot of our inventory is older. Certainly in the ski areas, the places were built in the 70s and some in the 60s. And many of them, the infrastructure, septics, electricity, all of that has not been upgraded to keep up with the times, I guess we could say. So you're getting people coming into these homes, and maybe the price point is great, but then they do the inspection, the septic is failing, or the septic is not in great shape. There's electrical work that needs to be done. So all of a sudden your price point has to either be negotiated, or the buyer has to come in with some wherewithal to do some more work than they anticipated. So that's a little bit challenging too.
So are we still seeing prices or places kind of being sold sight unseen, or just with a video, or
Some.
is that sort of thing still happening? Which was it sounded like it was going on a lot in the immediate aftermath of the start of the pandemic. That you put it on the market and boom, it was gone. So it sounds like people are being a lot more discriminating at this point.
So
than they used to
not
be.
to monopolize the conversation here, but we had a situation yesterday where two people, it was a multiple bid situation, it was a condo that was desirable, and they don't come on the market very often up in the Stratton area. And there were 5 offers and within a couple of days, which was exciting. 2 of them were sight unseen. One was a video, the other had not even seen a video. And the sellers actually chose a buyer who had been on site. They did not want to sell to somebody that had not seen it, which I thought was quite interesting, even though that offer might have been a little bit higher. So that's sort of an interesting thing. The sellers are getting savvy now because the buyers come in and then they say, oh, this isn't what I anticipated, or this isn't what I wanted, or, and they don't want to get into that situation sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll say that I have one under contract right now, a listing was a sight unseen sale, and it's also a retread. This is now the second time I'm selling it. The first time that buyer was also sight unseen, and they backed out.
Oh, wow.
I know, and so I feel like some properties are just still sort of appealing to that clientele, that base. My clients, the sellers, they bought it sight unseen during COVID at the height in 2021, and they've loved it, and they have made their own improvements, and they're ready just to take their journey elsewhere. So to that point, some of the people who've moved here during COVID are ready to take that next step. But that to me is not a high turnover. That's just 4 years is a decent amount of time to be in a place, especially when you're a younger couple. Life just takes you on different journeys, and I think people in general today are more nomadic. These younger folks who can just work from anywhere,
Right.
they can, whether you're a YouTube star or you are, a journalist and working from home, or it's just an interesting world that we're living in where people have that freedom of movement. So, so sight unseen is still happening, but I agree with Allie that there are more negatives than positives to that sight unseen offer, and I think sellers are smart to be cautious about accepting that offer. If you have an in-person offer, chances are that's the stronger offer.
I think going back to something you mentioned earlier, that in Vermont we're almost selling a lifestyle more than we're selling a house.
Absolutely.
So knowing the area, the communities, the amenities is very, very important, and helping to educate people to that. The majority of the buyers that I get that I had no relationship with before have got at least a romanticized concept of what they think Vermont is from watching White Christmas or whatever. Or they've had some association. They went to summer camp there. Their grandparents had a house on the lake. Somebody brought them up for skiing. They went to college there, whatever. Happily, the mystique of Vermont that all 4 of us appreciate, and every day we're lucky enough to live here, still is gold, I think. And that is what attracts people here, and it's why it's fun to sell here, but it's also a greater challenge because we're not a cookie cutter state. And you can't really compare one property to another unless your condo has carpet and mine has wood,
Exactly.
So, but again, I think that's what makes it such fun. And I think we really, by and large, we have fun with what
have
we
so
do.
much fun.
We're people.
Yeah.
We believe in this place. We love living here. We want other people to live here. And that's what makes the job worth it.
One of the coolest things that I've experienced a lot since COVID is, and I was mentioning before about how people aren't really sure where they want to be. So when I talk to them about, do you want to be in a bougie town or do you want to be in a town that's more rural? And the neat thing is that all the towns, certainly in the southern part of the state, are close enough together that if you like this aspect of this town and that
Right.
aspect of that town, it's 10 minutes apart or 20 minutes apart. So there's plenty of locations where people can land and yet have access to so many different types of recreation and entertainment and you know, incredible food scene and breweries, all sorts of great stuff.
Or total solitude. You know,
Or
some
that.
people really
Right.
do want to be where they hear no traffic. And
Yep.
it's even in a rural state like Vermont, it's hard to find a property where you do not hear
Right.
any
Good point.
road sounds.
Yeah.
I have a listing like that right now. It's still on the market.
Oh,
So if
good
you're
to know.
looking for a property like that, it does exist.
Give me a call.
But they are hard to find.
Yep.
And so, yeah, whether you want something big, small, I think that there's something out there for everybody right now, that there's a good amount of inventory.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been hearing about a lot is mortgage rates. I guess they've been kind of on the high end recently, but maybe coming down.
Not for those who remember them at 18%.
18% of my first house.
And I'll raise my hand on that one. But how big of a factor is the mortgage rate situation at this point? I mean, a couple of years ago, it was kind of seemed like a fairly big deal for a lot of potential buyers. Still a big deal now, or is that not so much as it perhaps used to be?
Well, when you think about 2.5% to 3%, which is, you know, where we were at the height of buying in, you know, 2020, 2021, that explains why so many properties were selling so fast and property values rose so fast. Because if you can lock in a mortgage at 3%, you're willing to spend more on the total purchase price. But now that those prices have risen so dramatically, I mean, Vermont as a whole has gone up about 55% from pre-COVID to now. Maybe not every individual house, but on average, that's how much our values have appreciated. So you now say instead of 3%, you're probably going to lock in at 6.25%, 6.5%. That higher price and the higher interest rate coupled together is what's softening the market. People just can't bear the high prices. I mean, we still see a lot of cash. I've seen, you know, those buyers aren't affected by interest rates at all. But when you take a 6.5% mortgage on a property that's, you know, doubled in its price in the last 5 years, it's what's putting housing out of reach for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think we're seeing a couple of things. We're seeing a lot of people come in with higher down payments, the people that can afford it. So they have more equity in their homes at the get-go. The other thing that I think is relevant, and a point that I try to make to a lot of my buyers, is that 6% is not a bad number.
Right.
Coupled
Historically,
with,
it's-
historically, it's a
Exactly.
great number.
We can
right?
remember much higher numbers.
Exactly. And my first house back in the 80s was over 18%.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talk to people about that sometimes and say, you know, yes, 2.5% to 3.5%, that was historically low.
Yes.
Right? The 18s and others are historically high.
And you can
this-
refinance too.
being at 6 or 6.5 or even 7 is very reasonable if you're in a house that you can afford the payment, which is
Right.
what Jen said. You know, now the prices are so much higher. We have to be careful where we guide people so that they can afford the payment, or they need to have a bigger down payment so that their mortgage is a little bit less.
And it's affecting sellers too. You know, there are sellers who had a really good rate or are just about to pay theirs off, and they're looking at what it's going to cost them. Even if they're downsizing, they're going to get less than they're selling for the same amount when they downsize. So, you know, it has an effect on both sides. So
Yeah.
I think all the predictions are that rates are probably going to go down a bit within the next few months, and we hope for everybody's sake that that's the case, but we just got to watch and see.
Everybody is the naysayers out there on the internet are waiting for the crash. You know, the crash of 25. It's not coming. You know, none of the lending that's happened in the last 5 years has been subprime
Right.
lending. You know, the market has organically grown because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, you know, the movement that happened in the Vermont market to go from a $200,000 house in 2019 is now probably worth $350,000 or more. That's not someone being greedy. That's the market doing its
Right.
thing. That's not
Right.
us overpricing it. It's not a seller overpricing it. You know, this has been a historic shift for us. Vermont used to be underpriced compared to the rest of the country
Exactly.
forever.
Exactly.
And it was shocking to people, right, when they would move here from other states that were very expensive, either their taxes or just their home prices, and they couldn't believe what they could buy here in Vermont. It was so dirt cheap compared to where they were moving from, and now I feel like we've kind of caught up with the rest of the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this trend is happening nationwide, where, you know, COVID, everything went up, and
Yeah.
it's not just Vermont. But the nice thing for Vermont is now our prices are probably where they should be.
Right.
You know, I think they went a little bit over the top for a while, but now they've sort of regulated, and you're getting fair prices
Yeah.
for what you're buying. And one of the things you can look at is, what is the price per square foot? And I'm seeing a lot of times, I look at the price per square foot on some of these homes that are on the market. You can't build that house for $329 per square foot
Right.
today, or $195 per square foot today. So the building prices are
500 maybe
way above that.
average now?
Way above that.
And I think it depends on where you are, but you know, for example, in my area down in the Bennington and surrounding towns, you know, $400 a square foot would be pretty typical.
Easily.
If you're going into Manchester in the mountains, you're probably
It's
talking 600 to
6 to
800,000,
8, exactly.
800 per square foot. And you know, somebody comes in and says, I can't find exactly what I want to buy. I'm thinking about building. And because I'm married to a general contractor, I get those calls all the time. You know, I love being able to have those conversations. And sometimes for them, that is the right thing to do, is to build, you know, and I can partner with my husband and I can, you know, show and sell them some land, and then John can design a house with them and build it. But most people, they get major awakening with the sticker shock
That's
when they
right.
realize, oh my God, I'm going to have to spend 2 to 3 times the price to build it versus buying.
Yep.
Let's start looking at existing homes. And I'm like, okay,
Which is the problem with selling land now.
Yes.
right. Land has
Because,
slowed.
You know,
right.
land really went up when our inventory went down, and
Yes.
it was still desirable to be here. Then they looked at what it takes to develop land when you have to put in a well, septic, bring in the power, and how long you have to wait for contractors, and what it costs. And so we have a lot of land now
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is available, and it's going to come down, and it'll all balance out again, as everything does.
We see a lot of that sort of tiny home trend now on the land. People are trying to buy something where they can put in a tiny home, or I'm seeing a lot of the modular construction. There's some great companies around that will put in a modular structure that's reasonable. So there are solutions for people who are buying land that don't want to pay the contractors at the $600,000 and $800,000 or $800 a square foot. But you know, there are options, I guess is what we could say. But I think you're right. The land prices are stagnating right now.
I wonder if you all think that if the state is ever able to get successful at building more affordable or workforce housing. I
Let's
mean,
hope.
we've talked about this
Hope so.
for decades, I guess,
Yeah.
but certainly in the last few years, it's been a big part of the conversation, particularly up here in the Manchester, Dorset area, get more affordable housing for that, you know, ordinary people can live in. If that really takes off, and there would now be, like, let's say, a significant number more of affordable homes available, would that have an impact on the overall real estate market, do you think, or is that a whole different sector that, you know, people who are, let's say, coming in from out of state, you know, that's not the kind of place they're looking for?
No, but it would provide a lot of housing for our workforce, which would be brilliant.
Yeah,
'Cause we're really missing that right now.
yeah.
I think what's missing from the conversation on a statewide level is understanding that the cost of building is the cost of building. And when you're dealing with, let's say, trying to build a affordable $250,000 house, that's going to have to be heavily subsidized by the state in order to be able to make that possible. It's not possible. I mean, if you're talking about a $400 a square foot construction cost, even to build a 1,000 square foot ranch, it's going to be a $400,000 build. So where are you going to be able to create $250,000 affordable housing?
Right.
It's just not possible. So unless the state is willing to give a builder or the buyer $150,000 of equity towards their home and underwrite that, it's just not going to be possible. So the math isn't mathing is the problem. And so that's why the contractors are getting this reputation of only, you know, returning the phone calls and doing the builds on Stratton and very wealthy, you know, custom homes in Manchester. And it's like, because they're the people who can afford to pay the construction costs. It's not that they're trying to discriminate or, be classy in any way, of going only towards the high-end builds. It's just that's who can afford the cost of building. These people live in our community as well, so they have their own housing and food to buy and gas to put in their cars, and the cost of living is high. So the reality is I'd love to see more units, whether they are rental or for sale. But I think that we're going to need to really revamp Act 250. Whatever attempts the legislature has made at revising the Act 250 and permitting processes, it's just not enough. It's a drop in the bucket, and we have to really incentivize more dense development, more multifamily housing. I mean, there's not a single housing complex in Bennington, which is a town of 16,000 people, that is not like a Section 8 housing complex. There's no large apartment building where you have 100 units. Those types of housing opportunities just simply don't exist here. So we're 500 rental units short in Bennington. That's a big problem. Where are all these people going to live? So we want to be a part of that solution, but the state has to be a partner in that conversation.
Yep. Good point, Jim.
Well, in the few minutes we have left, I wanted to also just ask you what advice you might have for folks who might be watching about if they want to put their home on the market. What are some of the things that they would be wise to do? We talked earlier about staging a building. I mean, what does that involve? What does that mean? Beyond just sort of keeping everything kind of cleaned up and looking nice and the lawn, the grass mowed and what have you. Are there a few more tips or ideas that you could share that potential home sellers might be going,
Absolutely. The key is to make the house, I believe, the key is to make the house look like you don't live there. So anything that's personal, piles of cereal boxes on top of the refrigerator, lots of stuff on the counter in the kitchen, put all that stuff away, all of your personal pictures that are charming and you're living with them and you want to look at them every day, but you've had a chance to look at them, put them away, put them in a box. You're going to be moving anyway. So strip down the house so that when somebody walks in, they can see themselves in the house. And they're not busy looking at, oh, who lives here? Oh, look at them. They were playing football that day or whatever. They don't need to know that. They need to know that they can put themselves in your space and they can see their furniture in there or their kids sitting on the couch or whatever it happens to be. I think it's hard for people to declutter enough. And that's one thing that really makes a big difference. Too many throw rugs on the floor, dog cages, all that stuff needs to just get hidden. And I think one of the things I tell my sellers is if you want to pile everything in a neat stack in the garage, you're moving anyway. We get that. The buyers get that. And if it's neatly stacked in the garage, it's out of your house. Mm-hmm. So there's less to look at.
And one less thing to do later.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll add, you can never do too much deep cleaning. I think that there are some homes that, you walk right in and it's just white glove ready and you're like, wow, this is immaculate. And you feel like I'd want to live here. And then there's other homes you walk into and you're like, I don't want to take my shoes off at the door. Yeah. And so you've got to take a really honest, hard look at your house and say, am I capable of doing the deep cleaning that's needed here? Should I hire a professional? It's definitely the best money that you can spend, I think. Don't forget your windows. You want to clear away the drapes, open up the blinds. You want to let as much natural light in as possible, not just on photo day, but for all the showings too. Because we have this beautiful place that we live in, we want to see that inside and out. And then my last tip is to not put off the small deferred maintenance items. Yep. So if you have some wires that are hanging in the basement and you've ignored them forever because it doesn't bother you, it's going to bother that buyer. Hire an electrician, have them put it all in a junction box, put a cover on it. Paint around the front door, that's a real easy thing. Get out the paint on a nice sunny day. We've had a lot of them this summer. It's been a beautiful year. And just scrape and paint away so that front door looks nice and sharp for their first impression.
Mm-hmm. It's part of what we could do as a professional who sees properties every day is be an objective set of eyes for our buyers and say, look, I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to be your best advisor. And I'm going to tell you, first impression, we need to trim back those bushes over there. We need to paint that front door. We need to get rid of that worn welcome mat. We need to
Right.
clean up the dog hair in the corner of the playroom.
I think along those lines, it's just a matter of don't wait until you're totally ready to contact a realtor. Call us 6 months to 12 months in advance.
Right.
You can never be too early to get your house ready, because chances are you may need to do more than you realize to get it prepped, and you don't want to be stressed 1 week before your showing, your first showing or your photo shoot, trying to finish up all those last tasks. So take a moment if you can, if you think that like retirement's on the horizon, or you think that you're going to be wanting to move in the next year, call a realtor sooner than you think.
Yeah, that's great advice. One of the things that I recommend to my sellers is that they consider hiring a home inspector to come in prior to listing their home. And I found that that's been incredibly useful for people, because there's things that people don't realize have gone awry, and they can take care of them prior to listing the home. And so that's a really good amount of money spent prior
Since
to
we
listing.
know that now most are going to sell with an inspection. It's
Right,
usual
right.
these days.
Septic
Tackle the problems.
inspection
Yeah.
is another amazing
Totally.
use of your pre-listing money.
Yeah.
Knowing what's going on with the septic, we have so many septics in this state that have ruined sales because of their failure or
And because they're completely
imminent
unknown.
failure. Exactly,
Right.
Yeah.
exactly.
No,
So
nobody wants to buy, their biggest purchase in their lifetime with a big unknown. So the more that you
Yeah.
can prepare yourself to understand, here's what the buyer is going to learn in this process, you want to educate yourself with that information up front too.
right, so it's not a surprise.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And because the internet is so important, the way we market, the quality of what we put on there, and the way we prepare you so that it will online attract you is really, really important, because by and large, people don't drive around and shop around anymore. They find what they want to see. They come to us with their list
Right.
or their
That's
house.
right. They do.
And it's because it presented well online.
Yes.
So we know what that takes, and pay attention.
All right, well, all good points, and I'm sure all the folks out there are listening, they're going, okay, I guess I better get on that one. Paint that door or whatever that I've been not doing for the last 5 years. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, this is such a fascinating subject. There's so many aspects to it, but this will give us another opportunity to have you all back again sometime. So anyway, so thanks again to Jennifer Hoffman, of the principal broker and owner of Hoffman Real Estate, and Steve Stetler, a realtor with Four Seasons Sotheby International Realty, and Allison Cummings, who is the principal broker owner of Cummings & Co. in Windham. And thanks to all of you who have been with us. Hope you found the show interesting, and we'll see you again the next time. Take care.